We're going to be looking at loops this time around. We've done variables, and that gives us the ability to have data that we can change whenever we need to change it. Now I'm going to go through something where you want to do the same task kind of over and over and over again. And so we've got several kinds of loops. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get some input again. You can see that on line 4. I'm asking for the name. Now, the next thing I'm going to do on line 7 is I'm going to use a for loop. With a for loop, there are several ways of doing a for loop. This is a pretty easy and basic one. I'm going to do for I, which is my variable, and it's really my loop counter as well. I'm going to do for I in range, and that gives me a range. So I'm going to do 1 to 10, and I'm going to say print name, comma I. So I'm going to print the name, and then I'm going to print out the number I. So every time through the loop, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now, the next loop that we're going to do is a while loop, and that starts on line number 11. Now, with a while loop, there are a couple of ways to do it. So what I want to do really is I want to set a condition. And this is where we do something at the top of the loop. So every time I enter the loop at the very beginning, I'm going to check this condition. There are a number of conditions that I could use here. I could say, for example, while x less than 0. So in this case, x is 0, it's not actually going to run at all because x is not less than 0. I could say while x is greater than or equal to 0 or something like that. So I want a condition that I'm going to check every time I come through the loop, including the very first time. Now, the reason I say that is because there are other loops that you can do that are bottom checks. So basically, I'm going to run through the loop once, then I'm going to check the condition. With a while loop, where I'm checking at the top, there's a possibility I may not actually run through the loop. So just to make things really clear here, if I were to say while false, I'm never going to get into print x, x equals x plus 1, and so forth. So I'm going to do while true. That's going to just keep going until I stop it. If I were to do while x less than 15, for example, once I hit 15, the loop would stop on its own. In this case, I just want to show you the break statement, which is a way to break out of the loop manually. So I'm going to say print x, and then I'm going to increment my x here, x equals x plus 1. Then I'm going to check again to see whether x is equal to 15. And if it is equal to 15, I'm going to break. So I'm going to drop right out of the loop and not continue executing anything at all. So I could, for example, say x equals x. If I were to break on line 16, I'm going to drop out of the loop. I'm never going to execute line 17 on that particular time through the loop. Now, another loop that I can do is I can create a list. So I'm setting up a list. I've got 4 things in my list. I've got lions, tigers, bears, oh my. Now I'm going to loop through the list. Again, I'm going to use for, and I'm going to set I equal to every item in the list, just as we did on line number 7, where for I in range, I got every individual value of that range. The same is going to be true here. I'm just using a list where I've got strings. So for I in my list, we're going to print out I. So let's just take a look at this. Again, I'm right-clicking on loops.py, and I'm going to say run loops, and I'm just going to say my name. Now, let's scroll up here and make sure that we get what we're looking for. So you can see we're printing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The thing is, I didn't get the 10. That's because what I'm really doing is greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. So basically, you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The very top value here, 10, I don't ever get that value. This is kind of a top condition check here. The next thing I did was I set x equal to 0. Now I'm printing x, and you can see I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I ought to get all the way until 14, because as soon as I hit 15, after I've incremented here on line 14, I don't print out 15 because the moment I hit 15, I'm going to break. The last thing that we do here is we do the list, and we're iterating through the list using our for loop. So I'm printing out I, and I get lions, tigers, bears, oh my. So that's a handful of different loop types that you would use. Loops are really important programming constructs. You're going to use them on a pretty regular basis.